All right, today we're going to jump right in and unpack a video from the YouTube channel Promethean Updates. And it paints a picture where the headlines you're seeing, well, they're just a smokescreen for a hidden global conflict. It's a pretty intense worldview, so let's break down exactly what they're claiming. So the entire story from this video really hangs on this one powerful metaphor. And it actually comes from a video that former President Trump shared. The idea is pretty simple, right? You've got a patient lion, that's supposed to be Trump, being pushed and pushed by these weaker jackals. This whole image of the lion finally getting up and showing its strength, that's the absolute key to understanding the entire narrative that's about to unfold. So you might be asking, how does this secret war even begin? Well, according to the source video, it all kicks off with a very, very public crisis. They set the stage with these super high-stakes peace negotiations with Iran, and the claim is they're right on the brink of failure, with a critical deadline just around the corner. Okay, so here are the details of that public crisis, just as the video lays them out. You've got Trump's hardline stance. No more Mr. Nice Guy. The target, Iran's IRGC, which the video calls the militia for the mullahs. Then there's this claim of immense economic pressure. We're talking a U.S. blockade that's supposedly costing Iran $500 million a day. And right in the middle of it all, they place key figures like Vice President J.D. Vance, Jared Kushner, and Steve Bannon as the negotiators on the ground in Islamabad. But, and this is the absolute core of their whole argument, the video claims this entire dramatic crisis with Iran, it's all just a distraction, a smokescreen for a completely different conflict that's happening behind the scenes, totally out of public view. So if the Iran crisis is just a smokescreen, what's the real fire? Well, the source claims this secret war isn't really about Iran at all. Nope. Instead, they argue the real target is Vice President J.D. Vance, who they frame as Trump's chosen successor. And the whole point, they say, is a coordinated effort to totally undermine him as the lead negotiator. And to back this up, the video lays out the specific timeline to build its case for a propaganda campaign. It all starts, they say, back in February 2025, with a speech Vance gave in Munich. Just hours later, the source claims the British press started painting him as a tool of Putin. Then this narrative supposedly just builds and builds until last Tuesday, when a Financial Times column called him the ever-shrinking J.D. Vance, a phrase the video says was then blasted everywhere. And get this is the exact quote the source says was the trigger for this whole alleged campaign. In his speech, Vance says, "We ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard." Now, the source video interprets this as a huge veiled accusation. They're basically saying that Vance was telling the European establishment to their faces that they'd become fascist and were strangling free speech. So this slide really shows you the two competing pictures the source video sets up. On one side, you've got what it calls the smear campaign, this image of Vance as weak, small, and compromised. But on the other side, you have the video's counter-narrative. Vance as a strong, effective leader, confronting a heckler about Gaza and leading this new national fraud task force. So who's supposedly running this whole smear campaign? I mean, this is where it gets really interesting. The video claims to expose the anatomy of a propaganda machine, and they say it's this sophisticated operation run out of London, using Iranian assets to get the job done. And the video breaks the supposed machine down into three distinct layers. First up, Layer 1, Press TV. They describe it as Iran's English-language news channel, but, and this is key, operating from London with Western faces. Layer 2, they point to NIAC, the National Iranian American Council, a DC lobby group the source claims was proven to be coordinating directly with Iran. And then the third and deepest layer, according to the video, is something called the Iran Experts Initiative, a supposedly secret program from 2014 designed to plant pro-Tehran analysts inside major U.S. media outlets and think tanks. And here's where the source really tries to connect the dots to things you might have heard of before. They argue this isn't some brand new strategy. No, they call it a recycled British intelligence playbook. The video claims this exact same model was used to push the whole Russiagate story against Trump and also to build support for the war in Ukraine. They're basically saying, hey, we've seen this movie before. Okay, so this brings us to the grand finale of the video's narrative. After laying out this whole secret war and this complex propaganda machine, the source predicts a powerful, decisive counterattack. They call it the Lion's Coming Justice. And boom, here we are, full circle, right back to that central metaphor. The source presents this not just as a theory, but as a promise that action is coming and it's coming soon. The lion, they argue, is finally getting up to deliver a serious reckoning. The source even gets into the weeds and names the specific team they believe will carry out this justice. They point to Joseph D. Genova, a former U.S. attorney, as a special counsel. They mention Kash Patel, a former Trump official, who they identify as the new FBI director, promising that arrests are coming. And they make sure to highlight that the presiding judge is Eileen Cannon, who you might remember for her previous rulings that were favorable to Trump. But wait, there's more. The source points to one other element of this big counterattack. They describe a time bomb that's set to go off right before the midterms. And what is it? The National Fraud Task Force, led by none other than J.D. Vance. The video claims this task force is about to expose a massive alleged fraud that links Medicare and Medicaid funding directly to the Democratic Party. So, that's the whole narrative from Promethean Updates, right? A story where what we see in the news is just a cover for secret wars, and this epic showdown between a lion and its jackals is right around the corner. I mean, it's a powerful story, and it really leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? When we're presented with such a compelling narrative, with clear heroes, villains, and hidden plots, how does that actually shape what we believe and what we accept as reality?